All right, folks, time for the inside track. Yours truly, Eric Kavanagh, here with our good buddy, Yves Mulkers. This is our new weekly discussion of what's going on in the industry. And there's a lot going on. And we talked, I think, last week about Okura getting acquired by Databricks. Hats off to Databricks. I'm wondering myself if I should write an article to the tune of, has Databricks stolen a march on Snowflake? Because in the last couple of months, Databricks, one, got Okura, which I think is a big win. I'm very familiar with what those guys do, analytic governance, basically. But two, they rolled out their own large language model very soon after ChatGPT. And of course, very soon after, there was a bit of a media mishap around using ChatGPT and it trying to get New York Times reporters to marry it and weird stuff like that. But Yves, you know, as I know, that really that was a misuse of the tool by the New York Times, right? They're misunderstanding what this thing is, worried about sentience and that side of the AI storyline. And really a large language model is just a predictive engine for words, right?
I think you stated right. It's pretty technical how you stated the prediction for the words, and that's exactly what it is. If you know how to use it and feed it in such a way, I've recently read an article where they were discussing about this is exactly the requirements gathering, what you put in a document if you're doing a project. It needs to be 2 pages long. Nobody creates 2 pages long. Nobody reads 2 pages long. But this is the type of prompt you have to feed to ChatGPT to get the exact outcome what you are expecting. It's the same as the creative brief when you're doing digital projects as such. 2 pages long. Be explicit. Be very precise on what you want to get from the model, and then you get valuable output. This was ChatGPT 3.5. With the 4.0, you can even feed it by reading it from the web. So it's pretty accurate on predicting those words and your outcome. So there is the opportunity, what you see. But you need to understand how these models work in a certain way to see what type of output you can get from it. And there you get the augmentation of the humans on doing any kind of task in such a way. So I think, yeah, it's good that sometimes it goes wrong with big brands like New York, like the New York Times, and the, when you have to be careful on that.
Well, and you know, so I've been watching this stuff percolate for a while. It was probably a couple years ago that I noticed in Gmail, if you were typing within the Gmail client itself, you would see the engine finishing your sentences for you. And it's funny, I'm a typist, so it would take me just as long to do the keystrokes or the mouse movement to accept the recommendation as it does just to type the darn thing. So I just type it. I'm a bit of a purist that way. But that was the beginning. And then, of course, there's Copilot. You've got GitHub and Copilot. And what really has blown my mind is how these LLMs can write code too, at least basic code. And maybe you'll have to touch it up a bit, but at least to get you somewhere, that's some pretty cool stuff. And now I guess Google's Duet AI is going to be a competitor to the GitHub Copilot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I've been playing around with the code and with ChatGPT as well to get those insights. I've been very frustrated last Friday by exercising and explaining it pretty clear on what I was expecting it to do for a marketing campaign. But well, I built the formulas myself because I couldn't get it right. So many errors in there. So there is a way where I had SQLs being created by ChatGPT, and they came out pretty nicely. So that's already a very fast starter where you say, oh, I don't have to think it, just create a framework, and then you tweak it because you're the expert. And I think there on the end where you say, the framework is there already, you tweak it at the end because you know how things should work in such a way, but you get so much, you get started so much faster. And I think definitely in codes where you can instruct it to be in a very standardized way, in a certain way, how to write things. So that's really a benefit on how you can standardize on your architecture and building code for building products. So I see a lot of happening and opportunities in data management, in code development, by standardizing that. It's going to be something different than where you have the low code and no code type of platforms where you can pull together things, but still do it in a very bad way as such. So the templating together with the large language models, that's a big opportunity to come in. I would even say in the next coming months, if you see at what speed these models are developing and improving.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And low code, there's a lot of low code stuff. We're doing some work with Prophecy these days for the low code data lake house, basically. Some interesting stuff. Low code is not new. Low code goes back to the beginning of a GUI. Like the moment you had a GUI, you've got low code something. But now we're getting closer and closer to, I think, very robust low code. But you know, I'm a bit of a snob. You were just saying these LLMs, they spin up things and they don't always work. And you know, my old joke has always been, if you want to see just how bad code generation can be, go into Microsoft Word, type out hello world, and then do save as HTML, and then load that document in a text editor and see how many tags there are. Now, as of a few years ago, it was like 3.5 pages of HTML. And I'm like, all I did was type hello world. Like, that's it. 2 words, like the initial communication, right, of computers. And it's just like off the rails. So I think the ideal situation is where you can reveal codes and then go tighten it up, right? Like you don't, with low code, I think should always come along with a pro code component to let you see and refine. What do you think?
Yeah, it's refined, and that's I think that's where the loop is. You get this, and where this is what ChatGPT is using it for free, or letting users use it for free. In fact, what you're doing, you're training the model, or help them train the model to become more proficient in such a way. And having still that human in the loop to validate what comes out, that's still an important part until we completely can trust on how that will evolve in the future. But definitely, you still need somebody that can evaluate what comes out. And what I recently learned as well is it's about just the psychology. The large language models know a lot about psychology, but not the psychologies from the human being as such. How we do body language reading, all these aspects are not yet embedded into such models. So that's a big differentiator, where we don't have to be afraid of the AI stealing all our jobs as such. That will be transformed. But that's how I see that a lot of emotional stuff is not yet in the models. They're improving.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
That's a really good point. And I think we'll close on that point. And I'll just mention something Yves had told me earlier. He'd been talking to a vendor. We won't name any names, but he showed them what a large language model said about them. And they said, oh, no, we're not doing this anymore. And then he went to their website and it's still on their website. So it's like, well, so it's not the LLM that got things wrong. It's that you haven't updated your website. So yeah. And text knowledge is not the same as street knowledge, folks. But with that, we're going to give you a farewell, and we'll talk to you next time. You've been listening to The Inside Track.